Hi, welcome to Learn English for Conversation. In this channel, we learn how to speak English and how to improve every day. With story, dialogue, and vocabulary, you can improve your English speaking step by step. We help you learn English for real-life conversation so you can speak confidently, understand better, and use new words every day. Let's learn something new today.
Welcome back to Learn English for Conversation. I'm Isabella.
And this is Henry. In this episode, we'll share some practical and easy-to-remember phrases that will make your English conversations smoother and more enjoyable.
We'll give you examples and tips on how to use them in real life. Stay tuned. Mastering English, 10 practical tips for learners. And our mission, it's pretty simple, really. We want to extract the best, most actionable insights, help you get the knowledge quickly, thoroughly, but without, feeling buried in information. This deep dive is for anyone looking to boost their English, maybe for work or travel or just out of curiosity.
Yeah, and what's really interesting about this guide is how structured and practical it all is. It really gives you a clear path. It makes the advice very usable no matter what stage you're at. And we're not just going to list the tips, right? We'll break them down. Look at the why behind them, the how, give you specific tools, examples, make it achievable. The guide is great at cutting through some myths, focusing on small, consistent wins.
That sounds perfect. So let's start where the guide does. Tip number 1, practice every day. Seems basic, maybe, but why is this consistency so important according to the guide?
Well, it's definitely about building long-term memory, sure, but maybe more importantly, it tackles that all or nothing thinking. We often think we need these huge blocks of study time, hours and hours, but the guide, and honestly, research backs this up, says consistency is way more powerful than intensity. A focus 15, maybe 30 minutes a day, that builds a habit. And that habit is much stronger for remembering things long term than, say, one massive study session on a weekend that just burns you out. Think of it like exercise, maybe. Short, regular workouts beat one huge, exhausting session every few weeks.
That's a great analogy. Makes total sense. So it's the regularity, not the sheer amount of time. How does the guide suggest fitting this in? Because daily can still sound a bit daunting for busy people.
Right, exactly. And the guide is very practical about this. It's not about finding a huge new space in your day. It suggests micro sessions, like maybe 10 minutes reading something simple in English while you have your morning coffee. And then, 15 minutes listening to a podcast, or even just talking to yourself in English while making dinner. The real magic is setting a small daily goal, something you commit to, like learn 5 new words today or watch one short English video. Tiny steps build momentum. That's how you get the habit to stick.
I like that. A non-negotiable daily goal. Okay, so from building that daily habit, let's talk about something maybe more fun. Tip 2, watch movies and series in English. This sounds enjoyable, but what are the learning benefits here? How do we make sure it's actual learning?
Oh, this is a fantastic strategy because, well, it feels like entertainment. It kind of tricks your brain into learning. The guide points out huge benefits. It really helps your listening comprehension. You pick up tons of vocabulary and context, seeing how words are really used. And it even helps your pronunciation just by hearing natural speech patterns, the rhythm, the intonation. Now, the trick to making it active learning, not just passive watching, is this sort of step-by-step approach. You start with subtitles in your own language just to follow the story. Then, when you're ready, switch to English subtitles. And eventually, the goal is to try watching without any subtitles.
Okay, so you gradually remove the support. But wouldn't watching a whole movie in English be really tough for a beginner? Even with subtitles, it sounds potentially frustrating.
That's a fair point, definitely. And the guide kind of hints at a solution. A really smart way to handle this is to rewatch movies or shows you already know well. Think about your favorite cartoon or maybe Harry Potter, something you've seen loads of times. Because you already know the plot, the characters, what's going on. Your brain isn't working overtime just to understand the story. That frees you up to really focus on the language itself. The words, the expressions, how things are said. Platforms like Netflix, YouTube, Disney Plus, they're great for this. The guy even mentions Oro.tv because it has good subtitle options for learners.
Yeah.
It shifts the focus from just understanding to really listening and absorbing.
That makes a lot of sense. Building on that listening idea, the next tip is about audio too. Listen to English music and podcasts. How does this kind of listening help? Is it different from watching movies?
It is slightly different, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Music and podcasts are amazing for training your ear to the rhythm and melody of English. The stress, the intonation, these are super important for understanding people and sounding more natural yourself. It's not just about individual words, it's about the flow. When you listen to music, even passively sometimes, your brain starts picking up patterns, common phrases, even the emotion in the voice. So even if you aren't studying the lyrics intensely, just having that sound around builds familiarity. It makes it easier to reproduce those sounds later.
So you're absorbing the music of the language. That's interesting. And the guide gives practical steps for this too, right?
Oh, absolutely. The advice is pretty straightforward. Pick simpler songs. Artists like the Beatles, Adele, Ed Sheeran often get recommended because they tend to sing clearly. Then actually look up the lyrics. Read them. And, this is the key part, try singing along. It might feel silly, but it's incredibly effective for pronunciation and connecting the written word to the sound. Spotify, YouTube are obvious places, but there's also lyricstraining.com that makes it like a game, filling in missing lyrics. And for podcasts, something like English Class 101 is great for starters. But then, moving on to podcasts about topics you actually like, that's a huge step. You're not just learning English, you're learning in English. Big difference.
Okay, so we've covered input, listening, and reading implicitly. Let's move to output, which can be, well, intimidating. Tip 4, speak as much as you can. This is often the big hurdle, isn't it? The fear factor.
You've absolutely nailed it. That fear of making mistakes, sounding silly, it's probably the biggest block for learners. But the why for speaking is so important. It's really the best way to start thinking directly in English. That's how you build fluency. The guide offers different ways to do this, starting with the least scary. You can just talk to yourself. Seriously. Describe what you're doing. Okay, I'm making coffee now. It looks like rain today. It feels weird at first, maybe, but it builds confidence without any pressure. Another good technique is repeating after native speakers from movies, podcasts. Mimic their sound, their rhythm. That's called shadowing.
Shattering, right. But what about actually talking to someone? That feels like the next level, and maybe where people get stuck finding partners.
Yeah, that's often the challenge. But there are actually tons of resources now. The guide mentions language exchange apps. HelloTalk, Tandem, Speaky. These connect you with native English speakers who want to learn your language. So it's a swap, basically. A partnership. You can also find online conversation groups, maybe on Zoom or Discord. Lots are free, focused on specific topics. And here's a really powerful tip the guide suggests for tracking your own progress. Record yourself speaking. I know it feels a bit awkward listening back, but it's such a direct way to hear yourself and notice improvement over time. You might actually surprise yourself how much better you get in just a few wits. It helps you spot things to work on and proves your hard work is paying off. Huge motivator.
That's clever, using recording as a self-check.
Okay, let's shift gears to vocabulary. A real classic method comes up next. Use flashcards for vocabulary. Simple, but why are they so effective? Is there more to it than just repetition? There definitely is. The secret sauce, if you like, is rooted in learning science. Specifically, two concepts: spaced repetition and active recall. Think of spaced repetition as, well, reminding your brain about a word just before it's about to forget it. It strengthens the memory each time. Digital apps like Anki, Quizlet, Brainscape often have this built in. And active recall. That's the act of forcing your brain to retrieve the information. You're not just passively looking at a list, you're actively trying to remember. It's like flexing a muscle. That active effort is what really cements the word in your memory, much more than just rereading.
Okay, so it's the combination of timing the review and actively pulling the word out of your memory. That makes sense. How does the guide say to make the flashcards themselves most useful?
Keep it simple but effective. Word or phrase on the front, on the back, an example sentence using it. Context is key. A picture helps too if you can add one. Like front, hungry, back. I am hungry, maybe with a little drawing of a rumbling tummy. The sentence shows you how the word works. That's much better than just memorizing a word in isolation. And yeah, the guide mentions tools like Anki specifically because they handle that spaced repetition automatically, making sure you review things at the best possible time.
Great. So from that focused word work, let's broaden out again. Tip 6. Read books, news, or articles in English. This feels more natural, maybe. But how do we make sure we're actively learning while reading, not just passively consuming?
Reading is brilliant. Yeah. It builds vocabulary naturally. You see grammar used correctly, all without the pressure of having to speak right away. You're exposed to sentence structures, new words, all in context. The key thing the guide highlights is starting at the right level for you. Don't jump into something too hard. Graded readers or simplified books are perfect. They use controlled vocabulary, simpler sentences, so you're challenged but not totally lost. Resources like Breaking News English or News in Levels are great for current events at different levels. And series like Oxford Bookworms offer tons of graded stories.
Right. Start where you are and build up. Is there anything else we can do while reading to make it even more effective for learning?
Yes, definitely. One really practical tip that often gets missed is to read out loud sometimes. It sounds simple, but connects the visual word to the spoken sound. Helps massively with pronunciation and rhythm. When you read aloud, you're using your eyes, your ears, even your mouth muscles. It reinforces the learning in multiple ways. Plus, you'll probably notice yourself stumbling over certain words that tells you where you might need a bit more practice with pronunciation. It turns reading, which is usually passive, into something more active, more productive.
That's a great way to link reading to speaking. Which brings us neatly to the next tip. Write daily. This is about organizing thoughts in English, but are there other, maybe less obvious benefits to doing this regularly?
Well, the main thing, like you said, is getting practice structuring your thoughts directly in English. You have time to think, form sentences, apply grammar without the rush of speaking. But another big benefit, writing helps you spot your own common mistakes. It's like a slow motion replay. You can see patterns in your errors. And the how-to is super simple. You don't need to write essays, just short bits. The guide suggests things like writing about your day, maybe your opinion on something simple, even just social media posts in English. Think about prompts like my day today or what I like about summer, maybe a letter to my future self. Keep it manageable.
Those are really accessible starting points, and I think the guide mentioned tech help for this too, for checking accuracy.
It did, yes. And this is where technology can be really helpful. The guide recommends using tools like ChatGPT or Grammarly. They're way more than just spell checkers now. They can give you feedback on grammar, sentence structure, even style choices. It's like having an instant proofreader. You get immediate feedback, which helps you learn from mistakes really efficiently. The important thing, though, is not just to accept the correction, but to try and understand why it's a correction. That's where the learning happens.
Good point. Okay, from writing, let's tackle grammar. Tip number 8 is interesting. Learn grammar, but focus on use. What's the balance here? How do you learn grammar without getting lost in rules?
Yeah, this one really gets to the heart of a common struggle. The guide is very clear. Grammar is important, yes, for being clear. But communication is the main goal. You don't need perfect grammar to be understood. So the how is about learning grammar in context. See how it works in real sentences, real conversations, not just as abstract rules in a book. Instead of just drilling verb tables, pay attention to how tenses are used when you're reading an article or listening to a podcast. The guide points to resources like BBC Learning English. Their grammar section has great real-world examples. And Ingvid has free video lessons showing grammar in action.
So, see it in the wild, basically. Where should learners focus their grammar attention first? It can seem overwhelming.
Absolutely. The advice is to stick to the fundamentals initially. Really get comfortable with the common tenses present, past, future, and basic sentence structures. If you can handle those, you can communicate pretty well in most everyday situations. Build that solid foundation first, then you can add the more complex bits later. This way, you avoid getting stuck in analysis paralysis, worrying so much about rules you never actually speak or write. Practical communication comes first.
That's a really practical approach. Okay, tip number 9. This one feels like a bigger leap, maybe more advanced, but crucial for fluency. Think in English. How does this internal shift actually change how we speak?
Oh, it's a total game changer because it helps you stop translating in your head that constant back and forth between your native language and English. It slows you down, makes your speech sound less natural, more hesitant. Thinking directly in English basically rewires your brain to process thoughts in English. That's the key to real fluency. How do you start? Small. Just narrate your life internally. Describe what you see, what you're doing, silently in your head. Okay, I'm walking to the shop now. The sky is gray. I need to buy some bread. It feels a bit strange at first, maybe artificial, but it builds that mental pathway, makes it more automatic over time.
Like an internal commentary track, are there ways to make that inner practice more interactive, even if you're alone?
Yeah, definitely. A great strategy the guide mentions is asking yourself questions in English. Simple things like, what should I have for lunch today? Or what did I think of that movie? By forming the question and maybe even trying to answer it in your head, you're actively practicing sentence structure, vocabulary retrieval, all in a very natural, low-pressure way. It's like having a mini conversation with yourself, which builds confidence for when you talk to others.
That makes sense. Okay, finally, tip number 10. This one kind of holds everything else together. Stay motivated and set goals. It's the engine for the whole journey, right? Why are clear goals so important here?
They are absolutely vital. Goals give you direction, they keep you focused. And honestly, they make it more exciting when you achieve them. Without a specific target, it's just too easy to lose steam, to drift. The guide strongly pushes for using SMART goals. You've probably heard of this. SMART stands for specific, know exactly what you want to do. Measurable, so you can track it. Achievable, make sure it's realistic for you right now. Relevant, it fits your bigger English learning aims. And time-based, set a deadline. This structure turns a vague wish like get better at English into something concrete you can actually work on.
That SMART framework really helps nail it down. Can you give some examples of what those goals might look like for someone learning English?
Sure, the guide has good ones. Instead of just learn words, a SMART goal is learn 50 new words using my Anki deck in the next 10 days. See? Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. Or maybe finish reading one graded reader book at my level this month. Or have one 30-minute conversation exchange on Tandem each week. These targets give you something clear to aim for, and you know when you've hit them. That feels good. And really importantly, the guide stresses tracking your progress. Whether it's a notebook, an app, whatever works for you. Seeing how far you've come, even small steps, is incredibly motivating. It proves the effort is worth it, especially during those times when it feels like slow going.
Okay, so what's the big takeaway here for you, our listener? We've unpacked these 10 really practical, connected tips for mastering English. It's definitely a journey, learning a language, but these tips really do offer a clear map. You don't have to do everything at once. Seriously, just pick one, or maybe two that resonate with you today, and try weaving them into your routine. Remember, it's those small, consistent actions day after day that really add up to big results.
And that leads to a final thought, maybe something for you to chew on. Beyond just learning words, beyond grammar rules, how could really embracing these daily practical habits change your whole relationship with English? Could it shift from feeling like study, like a chore, to something more spontaneous, a natural, maybe even enjoyable part of your everyday life? What would that actually feel like, not just speaking English, but kind of living in it more comfortably?
That is a powerful question to end on. Thank you so much for diving deep with us today. We really hope this has given you some useful insights and concrete steps for your own English journey. Thank you for spending this time with us on Learn English for Conversation.
We know learning a new language isn't always easy, but every minute you spend listening and practicing brings you closer to your goal.
Today, you learned useful phrases and natural ways to express yourself. Well done. We encourage you to repeat the episode, practice out loud, and even write your own dialogues.
We'll be back soon with more simple, fun, and helpful English to boost your confidence. Take care, keep learning, and remember, English is a journey, and you're doing great.
See you in the next episode.